A man named Douglas Watts was on his deathbed and knew the end was near. His wife, his nurse, and his 3 daughters were with him, and he asked for 2 witnesses and a videographer to be present to record his last wishes. And when all was ready, he began to speak. My daughter Jennifer, I want you to take the Mayfair houses. My daughter Karen, I want you to take the apartments over in the East End. And my daughter Andrea, I want you to take the offices over the city center. Jan, my dear wife, please take all the residential buildings on the banks of the river. The nurse and the 2 witnesses were awed, as they did not realize his extensive holdings. And as Mr. Watts slipped away, the nurse said, Mrs. Watts, I had no idea that your husband had accumulated all this property. The wife replied, he didn't own any property, he had a paper route. Among Paul's last words to his young protege Timothy, recorded in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2, are these words, the things that you have heard from me among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. What Paul wanted to pass on to others were the spiritual truths he had taught and wanted others to accept the responsibility for transmitting these eternal truths to their progeny as well. Many times I find myself recalling words of biblical wisdom passed on to me by my dad. More significantly was the unwavering example of devotion to Jesus that he lived. The greatest responsibility Dad gave me was the task of passing on to others what it means to live fully devoted to Jesus in both words and deeds. I was raised in a country church in the rural Kentucky area named Boones Creek Baptist Church, established in 1785. The original church building was constructed out of beams hewn from the surrounding trees and joined together by wood pegs. Some years later, my dad was the pastor of that historic old church for 33 years and was my pastor for all of my growing years until I left for college. I remember that his great fear was that I would succumb to the alluring pull of secular thinking in college and depart from the faith in which I was imbued from childhood. And so I often remember Dad cautioning me that Christianity is only one generation from extinction. If the current generation of believers fail to inculcate the faith of their offspring, Christianity dies. The late philosopher-theologian Elton Trueblood once compared today's Christianity in America to what he called cut flowers. He explained that while the cut flowers seem to go on living and may even exhibit some brightness and color for a while, they cannot do so permanently, for they will eventually wither and be discarded. Admittedly, I must confess that I began to question my faith during my college years, and in some ways found myself changing. Yet, however, as I look back now as an old man, I can say, though my faith and worldview were challenged to the core, I have come through life essentially with my faith intact and my life anchored in the truths and values taught me from that old Boones Creek Baptist Church and my dad. The views that I may have abandoned or changed are tangential to the faith of my father. The faith that Paul taught others nearly 2 millennia ago is the same faith that we have been entrusted to teach to our generation. In fact, in the little book of Jude, the writer says, I urge you to stoutly defend the truth that God gave once for all to His people to keep without change through the years. Were you, as I, lovingly taught from childhood the truths of God's Word? Have you succeeded or failed to pass on the faith in which you were nurtured? Maybe there's a more important question for both of us. Is it possible to replant the seeds of God's Word in today's young lives so that we together can faithfully pass on to future generations that which was passed on to us? That's something to consider.